Well, welcome back everybody. I wanted to make a quick update video because I need to clear off this entire workbench because now that I have my 1 out of 4 flap-around pieces painted, I need to clear this table off so I can put the other ones on here and get the aluminum scuffed up and get them ready for primer and paint. So before I take everything off this table, I'll show you what I have been working on. Now the first thing on the table is the panel for the pits. It has been completely disassembled and rebuilt, and I'll put a picture of the original panel on the screen, and then you can see the difference here with the new panel. I've replaced all of the screws with black screws, so everything around the edge and all the instrument screws are now black. And down here I'm missing one. I either counted wrong at the store or I lost it somewhere. But anyway, I need to get one more screw. So I had the aluminum powder coated, a semi-gloss or a flat or a matte black. And then this frame that's behind it, I had it in the paint booth I cleaned it up and reshot a coat of primer on it just to make it look nice. And I've attached it back together here. The only thing I have to do yet is put the N number on here and label the master switch. One of the other things I did, you can see the original label they had here for the key switch. You can see how scratched up and how bad it looks. I just ordered another one and replaced that. Now it looks brand new. I did have to do a lot of polishing. Instead of buying a new switch and a new start switch, I used the same one, but I did have to get out my flits and kind of polish everything up to make it look good again. Everything was just really kind of filthy and had just a layer of, not corrosion, but it was just oxidized, didn't look that good. So that now looks brand new. Now next on the table here are these two U brackets here. These were pretty nasty. This is what they look like when I took them off the airplane. And they go up around a tube on the front of the airplane and it just holds a panel on the bottom. And I was gonna clean these up and repaint them, but they're kind of all bent and ugly. And I think these are just from the hardware store. So I'm actually gonna go see if I can get some new ones, and then I'll just put some new nut plates on them and just replace them. This is the original circuit breaker panel. You can see how ugly and bad it looks. What I'll do is replace all of these circuit breakers with brand new ones. I can probably still use the same aluminum panel. I'll just obviously prime it and paint it and relabel it and make it look nice, but I gotta do that yet. Next I have the rudder pedals here, and you can see there is a little bit of wear in the paint. And I was originally going to strip these down and repaint them or have them powder coated, but one of the things I decided is I don't want this to be a 5-year or 10-year project. There's no reason to do anything with those other than clean them up like I did. So those are ready to go back in. Now these two tubes here, these actually go in here, and this is what the pedals pivot on. These I will probably strip and reprime and paint or have powder coated just because they're pretty bad. But anyway, once I get these done, these would be ready to put back in the airplane, even though the airplane is not ready for them. Now this is the bulkhead that's right behind the pilot. And it's made out of aluminum, and you can see they have this clear door with a hinge on the bottom. So that I've replaced this whole thing. You can kind of see how nasty this is. I could clean it up and paint it, but what they did was they bent over the edge here to rivet to the turtle deck. And this is pretty thick aluminum, and it doesn't really bend over that nicely. So I just thought I would make a new one. And this is the new one I made. So here's the door. I just need to put a hinge on here, and then it will open the same way. But this is the bulkhead. And the cut on the outside is just a rough cut for now, because what I want to do is when I get the turtle deck put back on the airplane, put this up next to it and get an exact line so that I can trim it. What I originally wanted to do on here is I cut tabs on each of these edges, and I was gonna bend them over, and that would stiffen it up. But when I tried to bend them over, this is, I think, 40 thousandths, and trying to get a hammer in here to pound on here with the blocks on it, if you ever made like a rib or something, you know what I'm talking about. It didn't come out nice at all. So what I did was I cut those tabs off, and on the back here, I just riveted on some L angles I had left over from the Zenith. And on the bottom here, I'll also put an L angle on the bottom, but I want to wait till I get my hinge, because there will be a hinge on here too. So I'm just not sure exactly how this will all fit yet. But anyway, this will be the new bulkhead and the new door. These are just the footrests. There's one on each side. These were just bare aluminum, and I cleaned them up, filed the edges, rounded the corners, and then had them powder coated. I'll probably put that rubberized non-slip tape on here, but I'll do that later. I don't need to do it right now. The other thing I have here is all of the tail pieces, except the rudder. The rudder is actually hanging over there. These, my original idea was I was going to strip the paint off of here and re-prime them and paint them and then recover them. But what I noticed was, and I kind of posted this on Facebook, MEK cleans this up really, really nice. And it takes off all of the old glue from the fabric that was on here. But I did have to touch up some places with primer. For example, all of the hinges, for some reason, the MEK took the paint and everything right off. So I don't know if they, when they originally built this or something, they masked these off and primed everything and then painted this with a plane and used a different type of paint or whatnot. But anyway, so I just re-primed all of the hinge locations. And you'll notice there's a lot more primer on this piece. And that's just because this is the piece, the first piece I did, and this is the piece where I was thinking I would just strip the paint off. So I actually stripped the paint off of all of this area, so I re-primed it. And it's actually not paint, it's actually just an epoxy primer that's on there. So these are all ready to recover, but I am not going to recover them until I can have the fuselage ready and I can do everything all at once. Now moving along down here, these are just a bunch of parts that I have primed that are ready for paint, and they're all going to be white, but I don't have any good white paint right now, so they're just sitting here as primer ready for paint. These are the two struts for the horizontal stabilizer. This just goes between the two horizontal stabilizers. This is a piece for up front. This is a piece that actually goes up here around the tube where it connects to the horizontal stabilizer. It actually goes like around like this. But these will be painted with whatever color I paint the outside of the airplane. This is just a throttle right here, so it just needs some paint. And the big thing here is the firewall. This is the piece of aluminum that goes all the way around the firewall. This is the original firewall. And what I did was I drilled out all of the rivets to remove this aluminum. And then what I did was I drilled out all of the nut plates that were around there, scuffed this up, cleaned it up obviously, primed it, and I'll put new nut plates on it, and I will be building a new firewall out of 304 steel. So I just have, I can get this locally in Michigan. Spruce has it too, but I think it's $48 to have Spruce ship me a 3x4 foot piece. So I can save 50 bucks if I just go pick it up here locally in Michigan. So anyway, I need to get a new steel for the firewall. I'll use this as a template, cut out a new one, then I'll rivet it back onto here, put new nut plates on it, and the firewall will be done. Now this piece here is a piece that I fabricated just out of some scrap aluminum I had. In fact, the aluminum I made this out of was a piece that I was using just to test paint when I was painting the cruiser. So I think I have some pictures here I can put on the screen of that aluminum was all blue. So I cut it out of that aluminum, then obviously stripped the paint off of it and, you know, rebuilt that. But that's this piece here. And I did make mine just a tad different. You'll notice this one has a big hole in it, and it's still all greasy and dirty. This one has a big hole in it, and that's where this goes right here. This is for cabin heat, which I have no reason to put cabin heat back in this airplane. This thing here probably weighs a pound, and all the hoses and everything, it's probably a couple pounds I can save from the airplane, and I just don't need it. This thing here, I replaced it just because it is just nasty. And if I didn't replace it, I'd have to put a patch over here. Now, the only thing is with this one, you'll notice this big dent right here. And I think that was done on purpose because there's a tube for the engine mount that goes right here. And I have a feeling that tube didn't clear, so they just dented this down to make clearance. You can't really make this any thinner. This is what goes on the very front bottom of the firewall. In fact, it goes right here like this, and you remove this, and this is where the bungee cords are for the landing gear. So what I might have to do is I might actually have to put a dent in mine also, but obviously that will come later after I see how it fits. Here's my rudder. Same thing, I just had to reprime the hinge locations. And then of course I have a whole bunch of parts on the ground here, but I've made a lot of videos and a lot of pictures of how this airplane came apart and how it goes back together. This is the current status of the airframe right here. The only thing I have to do on here yet is drill out that screw right there. It's the, I can't get a screwdriver in there to get it out. It's just kind of stripped. So I need to drill that out, then I can take this cover off. And then that's, oh, and the other thing too is I need to drill out the rivets for the seat pan. I can take that out. After that, what I'll do is I'll take it to my buddy's house because he has the tool that's required to remove these bungee cords. And then I'll figure out how to get this thing fixed. The main reason I'm doing this, you guys probably already saw, was that this fuel tank mount right here has cracked the frame. And I did find some other things down here. This piece of steel right here is completely broken off, so that needs re-welded. And there's a couple other little things. This little tab right here that holds that bulkhead on is broken on this side. So there was a little bit of damage to this thing after just years of abuse, I guess. But you can just see how nasty everything is. I mean, everywhere you touch on this airplane just gets you really oily and greasy. And the reason it's so bad is this engine has a very tiny oil leak. Like when I fly this airplane, when I park it, after a day or two, it'll have little drips of oil on the floor. I'm not sure if I can show you, but anyway, I usually put like an oil pan under it just to catch those drips. And I think after just 30 years of that thing leaking and the wind blowing this back, it just covered the inside of the airplane with all that dirt. And that's one of the, not the only reason obviously, but it's one of the reasons why when I saw this damage, I just decided to completely restore this airplane, is because it just bothered me. You guys know how I am. I'm a perfectionist. I want everything to look perfect and I want it to look good. And it just bothered me every time I got in this airplane, just seeing how nasty everything was in here. So it's an old airplane, but hopefully by the time I'm done with it, it will look brand new. The next step obviously is after I get the gear off, I'll take this to get bead blasted if I can find some place to bead blast it. I don't want to have it sandblasted because sandblasting kind of damages the metal a little bit, and bead blasting, from what I understand, is much better for the metal. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell them I only want it blasted from here forward, because everything back here, there's nothing wrong with it, and I was able to clean it up perfectly. So if I just have them blast it from here forward, I can get the bare metal, I can get these re-welded and fix everything up and then just prime it and paint the whole frame again. But one of the things I want to do, there's a couple places I don't want them to get, or I want them to be careful with when they bead blast it. And obviously this is one area because I don't want all those beads getting in there. And the other areas are down here. You probably can't see it, but it's a half circle, and it's basically a kind of a bearing surface to where the main torque tube rotates. There's two of them. So I don't want them to damage that. So what I might do is just cover this section, cover the back section, and then cover this section with a rag or something. Tell them to blast around that, and then I'll just use stripper to get the little bit extra off. So anyway, that's the condition of the pits. Like I said, I don't want this to be a really long project. Once I get this airframe re-welded and get it fixed, everything's going to go together pretty quickly. Now I just got this painted today. I have these are our new fuel cap fairings. And what they do is just streamline the air a little bit behind the fuel caps. And then I have the one outboard flapper on painted here. So I'll give that a couple days to dry. And then I'll get the other smaller one in here to get it primed. And anyway, just see if I can finish up all the painting on the flaperons.